First contact. As Nuran stared at Captain John Allen with disgusted yellow eyes, he didn't realize humans would thrust their mating parts into any alien holes, whether the aliens wanted it or not. John's survey ship, Boos, descended through the swirling purple clouds of Zephyr 6, carefully navigating the turbulent atmosphere. His 5 crew members checked scanning equipment and steered thrusters, while John gazed out the front viewport at the approaching Gamelon capital city. Soaring chrome towers gleamed under the red giant sun. The humans needed to establish diplomatic relations with the natives here. If they failed, Earth's dwindling population would starve without new agricultural worlds to replace those destroyed in the Centauri Wars. John clenched his fists. One way or another, humanity would spread its seed across the cosmos, planting itself in the fertile soils of countless alien worlds. John stomped back onto the Boos, steam practically shooting from his ears. He called an emergency meeting of his senior officers in the conference room. They needed to figure out how to handle this disastrous first contact with the Galans. "Can you believe the nerve of those stuck-up prudes?" John fumed, pacing in front of the view screen showing the sprawling alien city below. "Acting like we're some kind of deviants for expressing natural male needs. What a backward species." Mike Donnelly, John's barrel-chested first officer, let out a hearty laugh. He leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head. "They don't know what they're missing, Captain. Poor repressed bastards. I guarantee, behind closed doors, they're just as horny as any human." "I doubt that," John said, shaking his head. "Did you see the look on Emperor Nuran's face? He couldn't get us off his planet fast enough." A sly grin spread across Mike's stubbly face. "Care to put your money where your mouth is, sir? I bet credits that by the time we pull out of orbit, some curious Gamelon youth will be begging to ride the human rocket, if you catch my drift. Want to shake on it?" John hesitated for a moment, then reached out to clasp Mike's beefy hand. "You're on, Commander, but I'll be shocked if any Gamelon so much as makes eye contact with us after that imperial decree forbidding fraternization." Mike winked. "Never underestimate the allure of the exotic and forbidden, boss. Mark my words, we'll have no shortage of young alien nookie before all's said and done." John was about to retort when the communications panel beeped. Enan Rodriguez's voice crackled over the speaker. "Captain to the bridge. We have an incoming hail from the planet's surface. It's an unusual request." "Sir." Raising an eyebrow, John strode onto the bridge, Mike at his heels. On the main screen, a youthful, purple-skinned Gamelon regarded him nervously. "Greetings, Captain Allen. I am Kith, first son of Clan Morok. I have been selected to lead a delegation of young people in a cultural exchange with your crew. We wish to learn more about your species and customs. May we come aboard your vessel?" John blinked in surprise. This was the last thing he expected after basically being told to piss off by the Gamelon Emperor. He glanced over at Mike, who flashed him a grin and rubbed his fingers together in the universal sign for money. Sighing, John turned back to Kith. "We would be honored to host you and your delegation. I will have my men prepare accommodations and an educational program. We will launch a shuttle to collect you in 1 standard hour." As the view screen went blank, Mike elbowed John in the ribs. "Told you, didn't I? Those purple bastards can't resist the allure of human. __. Time to go replicate some rubbers, sir." John could only shake his head as he ordered his crew to begin preparations for receiving the Gamelon youths. He had a sinking feeling this cultural exchange would be a thinly veiled excuse for the alien kids to get their rocks off with some exotic human strange. The exchange begins. The shuttle arrived, and a gaggle of giggling, wide-eyed Gamelon adolescents spilled out, craning their necks to ogle everything and everyone. They crowded around the human men, boldly reaching out to touch their uniforms and exposed skin. John's diplomatic crew smiled politely but looked overwhelmed. Over the next few days, John noticed the Gamelon visitors spent more time batting their lashes at his men than studying human history or culture. They asked very personal questions and accidentally brushed up against the humans at every opportunity. The entire ship was abuzz with scuttlebutt about clandestine language lessons and biology tutorials between the two species. Try as he might to keep things professional, John had to admit Mike was right. The Gamelon youth were definitely sniffing after some human sausage. Frustrated, he could only watch his credits trickling away as the rumors of interspecies hookups spread like wildfire. So much for the Emperor's non-fraternization decree. John was in the middle of reviewing crew performance reports when the door to his ready room burst open. Emperor Nuran stormed in, his purple face flushed with rage. "Captain Allen, I demand an explanation for the depraved behavior of your men." Nuran slammed his fist on John's desk, sending pads clattering to the floor. John rose from his chair, holding up his hands in a placating gesture. "Emperor Nuran, please, calm down. What seems to be the problem?" "The problem," Nuran seethed, "is that your perverted crew has been defiling our innocent youth. Rumors are spreading like wildfire about secret trysts and private lessons between humans and Gamelons. This is an outrage." John took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I assure you, any interactions between my crew and your people have been entirely consensual. We have no intention of disrespecting Gamelon laws or customs." Nuran jabbed a finger at John's chest. "Consensual. They are children, easily impressionable. You humans have filled their heads with degenerate ideas, corrupting them with your loose morals. This ends now, Captain. If I hear of one more incident, I will have your entire ship expelled from Gamelon space. Am I clear?" "Crystal," John replied through gritted teeth. "You have my word that my crew will be on their best behavior." Nuran snorted derisively. "See that they are. The purity of our species depends on it." With that, the Emperor spun on his heel and marched out. John slumped back into his chair, massaging his temples. This mission was turning into a diplomatic nightmare. As he contemplated his next move, the door chime sounded. "Come in," he called wearily. A young Gamelon male shuffled in, head bowed and shoulders hunched. "Captain Allen, I am Zorak, son of Clan Kak. May I have a word in private?" John gestured for him to sit. "Of course, Zorak. What's on your mind?" Zorak fidgeted, unable to meet John's gaze. I am one of the youths who has been intimate with your crewmen." John leaned forward, clasping his hands on the desk. "I see. And you're telling me this because..." "Because I don't want you to leave," Zorak blurted out. "Captain, there are many of us who are fascinated by humans, drawn to your confidence and openness. We yearn to explore new possibilities, to challenge the rigid thinking of our elders, but we are afraid to speak out against traditionalists like Nuran." John pinched the bridge of his nose. As much as he sympathized with Zorak's plight, he had a mission to complete and a crew to protect. Getting embroiled in Gamelon cultural upheaval was not part of the plan. "Zorak," he began gently, "I appreciate your honesty, but you must understand, I have to respect the wishes of your government. I can't undermine their authority, even if I disagree with their stance." Tears welled in Zorak's amber eyes. "So you're just going to abandon us? Leave us trapped under Nuran's oppressive rule while you fly away to the stars?" A pang of guilt stabbed at John's heart. This whole situation was a mess. On one hand, the Gamelon youths deserved the freedom to make their own choices. His crew had every right to pursue consensual relationships. But on the other hand, openly defying Nuran could jeopardize the entire mission and Earth's chances of finding new agricultural colonies. John rubbed his jaw, feeling the weight of command pressing down on him. What was the right call? Uphold Gamelon law and crush the dreams of their youth, or stand up for his crew's autonomy and risk an interstellar incident? Confrontation and compromise. John paced in his quarters, mind racing. He couldn't let this cultural misunderstanding jeopardize the mission or the futures of those hopeful Gamelon youths. It was time for a frank discussion with Nuran, leader to leader. He sent a message requesting a private audience. In the Emperor's opulent receiving room, John faced Nuran. The Gamelon leader sat stiffly on his throne, eyes hard. John took a deep breath and dove in. Emperor Nuran, I must speak candidly. My crew and I will not be bullied or shamed for our natural desires and attractions. Your youth are adults, capable of choosing their own partners, regardless of species. John leaned forward. With respect, genetic diversity is a strength, not a weakness. Your isolationist views are holding your society back. Embracing change and connection with others can only enrich Gamelon culture. Nuran surged to his feet. I will not be lectured by you, Captain. Our traditions are sacred. Gamelons belong with Gamelons alone. That is the natural order. Just then, the door burst open. Nuran's son, Tero, stormed in, amber eyes blazing. No, father, you're wrong. I have taken a human as my lover. I refuse to live a lie anymore. Nuran reeled back as if slapped. Tero, what madness is this? You would defy me. Defile yourself. I forbid it. Tero drew himself up proudly. I denounce your intolerance. I'm leaving Zephyr 6 to explore the cosmos with my love. And I'm not the only one. More will follow, seeking to expand their horizons. As Nuran sputtered in shock, John stepped between them. This is what I'm trying to make you understand, Nuran. Love knows no boundaries. You can't control the heart. Let them follow their bliss. Nuran collapsed heavily onto his throne, a defeated tyrant. John and Tero exchanged a look of solidarity, united in their determination to forge a more open, accepting path. There was still much work to be done. A shift in society. Nuran slumped onto his throne, head in his hands as Tero's words rang in his ears. His own son, his flesh and blood, confessing to laying with a human. Unthinkable. Yet here they were. John stepped forward, hands outstretched in a conciliatory gesture. Emperor Nuran, I understand this is a shock, but perhaps we can find a middle ground, a compromise to satisfy both our peoples. Nuran looked up, eyes narrowed. Speak then, human. What do you propose? John cleared his throat. My crew and I will fully abide by your laws during our time on Zephyr 6. No more fraternization. You have my word. But he paused, choosing his next words carefully. Any of your people who wish to leave, to seek companionship among the stars, I grant them the freedom to do so without judgment or retribution. Nuran's fists clenched, knuckles whitening. Every fiber of his being screamed to refuse, to reassert the old ways. But Tero, his beloved boy, could he really condemn him to a life of secrecy and shame? As Nuran wrestled with indecision, whispers began to race through the palace halls. Tero's defiant declaration spread like wildfire, igniting long-suppressed dreams and desires. Gamelon youths gathered in the streets, at first in small knots, then growing crowds. They shouted Tero's name, raised signs calling for change. Many stepped forward to proclaim their forbidden human lovers, casting off generations of ingrained xenophobia. The most daring marched to the spaceport, boarding human vessels, and demanding passage off-world. Nuran watched the feeds in growing dismay. His society was unraveling before his eyes. And for what? Alien passions. Misplaced idealism. No, he realized with sinking dread, a future he could no longer deny. His people clamored for the stars. With a heavy heart, Nuran called for a planet-wide broadcast. He faced the cameras, suddenly feeling every one of his long years. My fellow Gamelons, he began, voice grave, I come before you in a time of great change, of upheaval to our most cherished traditions. He took a shuddering breath, steeling himself. While I cannot condone the mixing of our species, I must accept the reality that many of you desire companionship with these humans. Therefore, I decree that any adult Gamelon who freely chooses to leave Zephyr 6 and pursue such a union may do so without fear of punishment or exile. Gasps and mutters rippled through the crowds, disbelief warring with elation. Nuran raised a hand for silence. I do this not to spur the collapse of our ways, but to forestall it. We cannot maintain our isolation and expect our youth to stay, to uphold values they no longer share. So I must bend or see us break." He turned to John, meeting the human's gaze. "Captain Allen, I propose we open formal diplomatic relations between our worlds to discuss trade, cultural exchange, and the immigration of any Gamelons who wish to join your people among the stars. Much as it pains me, I recognize that change has come to Zipham 6. I must put my people first, even if it means accepting a future I do not understand." John nodded solemnly, recognizing the Emperor's anguish and resolve. They shook hands, an interspecies accord born of necessity and the undeniable tides of progress. The course of two civilizations now irreversibly intertwined. Rising tensions. John rubbed his temples as he left the negotiation room, frustration etched on his face. Just when it seemed like progress was being made, a new obstacle had emerged. Zorak, a die-hard traditionalist, was stirring up trouble among the Gamelons. He and his followers were determined to resist any change, viewing the budding relationships between humans and Gamelons as a perversion of their society. Reports started trickling in of harassment and violence against mixed couples. Gamelons who dared to associate with humans were labeled as traitors, facing intimidation and threats from Zorak's gang. The rhetoric grew more heated by the day, with Zorak openly calling for the expulsion of all humans from Zipham 6. John paced in his quarters, the latest incident reports scattered across his desk. A young Gamelon named Teth had been beaten badly for holding hands with a human crewman in public. The crewman, Enan Davis, was also injured when he tried to intervene. John slammed his fist on the table, anger boiling in his veins. He stormed into Nuran's office, interrupting the Emperor's meeting with his advisors. "Nuran, this has gone too far. You need to put a stop to Zorak and his thugs before someone gets killed." Nuran sighed heavily, the weight of his position evident in the slump of his shoulders. "Captain, I share your concerns, but I cannot be seen as a tyrant, silencing dissent among my own people. It will only breed more resentment and resistance." John leaned forward, locking eyes with the Emperor. "And what about the safety of your citizens, the humans and Gamelons who just want to live in peace, to love who they choose? You have a duty to protect them." Nuran broke eye contact, his gaze distant. "I fear that any action I take will only further divide us. Zorak has more support than I'd like to admit. Cracking down on him could push more Gamelons to his cause." John stood, jaw clenched. "Then you leave me no choice. If you won't act, I will. I won't stand by and watch innocent people be terrorized." He left Nuran's office, a plan already forming in his mind. He reached out to Tero and some of the other Gamelon youths who had been vocal in their support of human-Gamelon relations. They met in secret in a dimly lit cargo bay on the outskirts of the city. "We can't let Zorak and his fanatics win," John said, addressing the small group. "They're spreading fear and hate, trying to tear apart the progress we've made. But we can fight back, not with violence, but with unity and protection." Tero nodded, determination blazing in his amber eyes. "My friends and I are ready to stand up for what's right, for the future we believe in. What do you need us to do, Captain?" John laid out his plan. They would form a network, a coalition of humans and Gamelons dedicated to safeguarding targeted couples. They would provide escorts, safe houses, and a support system for those facing threats. And they would counter Zorak's hateful rhetoric with a message of tolerance, understanding, and the strength that comes from diversity. As the group dispersed, ready to put the plan into action, John felt a flicker of hope amid the chaos. Change was never easy, and there would always be those who resisted progress. But as long as there were brave souls willing to stand together, to fight for love and acceptance, they could weather any storm. The battle for Zipham 6's future had only just begun. The ultimate sacrifice. The blaring of alarms jolted John from his bunk. Red emergency lights flashed as he stumbled to the bridge, heart pounding. The view screen showed a nightmarish scene. A mob of armed gamelons swarming the ship's perimeter, hurling firebombs and firing plasma rifles. At their head was Zorak, face contorted with rage as he screamed for the humans to leave or die. John barked orders to his security teams to repel the attackers. He opened a comm channel to Nuran, yelling over the chaos. "Nuran, are you seeing this? Zorak has lost his mind." The Emperor's voice crackled back, strained with disbelief. I see it, John. This is madness. I'm sending my guards to assist you immediately." The ship rocked as an explosion blasted a hole in the hull. Engineers scrambled to contain the breach. John grabbed a rifle and raced to join the defense, praying they could hold out until help arrived.